And welcome to another math lesson. Today is an exciting day. We are entering a brand new math module, and this module is going to be all about addition and subtraction. We're going to be practicing counting. We are going to be putting numbers together and breaking them apart. Today, we are going to begin with our math thinking job of I can break 5 into parts and put it back together again. Right now, we are looking at a model of different ways that we are going to be breaking 5 into parts and putting them back together. We're going to take some time looking at objects. We're going to be using cubes. We're going to be using this model called a number bond. Today, my friends, the bears, are going to come help us work on breaking 5 apart and putting it back together. So I have my friend Samantha and her sisters, and my friend Frank and his brother. And they all are scheduled to go to a party together at someone else's house. Samantha and her sisters and Frank and his brothers, see, they're each going to leave their houses today and go to the house for a party. And in order to do that, they're going to need to follow a path. And it's like when you walk out of your house, when you go to maybe a neighbor's house or you go down to the store, you may follow a sidewalk. So this is kind of like the same thing. These bears are going to follow this path so they don't get lost on their way to the house where the party is. Samantha and her sister are going to take this path, and Frank and his brothers are going to take this path. They're going to follow these paths, and when they get to the end of the path, where do you think they are going to arrive? You're right. They're all going to arrive at the party at this house. So let's have them go. Now they're all at the party. All right. So if I were to move this house, what are we going to find in the house? We find the party of bears. They each left their own house and showed up together, and now they're in a whole group. Right. Perfect. Our learning goal for today says I can break 5 into parts and put it back together again. That's kind of what the bears just did. I had 2 parts, and I had the part that had Samantha and her sister, and the other part was Frank and his brothers. We're going to be using a tool called a number bond throughout this whole module. And we're going to use this number bond by showing our bears as parts and as wholes. We have 3 circles that make a number bond. The whole, where all of our bears were at the party together. We have our paths that they walked on to get them to the party. And we have our 2 parts, which were Samantha and her sisters and Frank and his brothers. So let's move our bears into a number bond. Our learning goal today says I can break 5 into parts and put it back together again. And that's kind of what we did with the bears. We had 2 parts, Samantha and her sisters, and Frank and her brothers. Then we put them together to make a whole group of 5. So now we have organized them in our wonderful math tool. We're going to call this a number bond. It talks about parts and whole amounts. So here are our friends again, and I put them back into their houses. I have Samantha and her sisters in their house, and Frank and his brother in their house. Then we are also able to show Samantha and Frank at the house all together for the party. know that there were 5 bears that went to the party. We can see that in our whole and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's talk about our parts. How many bears are at Samantha's house? 1, 2, 3. We have 3 bears at Samantha's house. How many bears are at Frank's house? 1, 2. We have 2 bears at Frank's house. One part is 3, one part is 2. When we put 3 and 2 together, we make 5. We were able to organize our bears into parts, 3 bears, 2 bears. These are our parts. We were able to use our paths to get our bears to the party and make our whole. We have 5 bears. 3 and 2 make 5. Say it with me. 3 and 2 make 5. We started off with Samantha and her friends. 3 friends were at this house. Then we had Frank and his brother. 2 friends were at this house. They all wanted to go to a party. They followed the pathways and all ended up at the same house. 3 and 2 make 5. We had 5 all together. So now we can write it in our number sentence as 3 and 2 make 5. The 3 shows our 3 bears as one part. 2 shows our other part of 2 bears. And 5 shows them all together. Now, let's look at these birds. We have some ducks and we have some hens. We are going to draw the parts of the ducks and the hens. Ducks and hens can be kind of tricky to draw and take a long time, so we're just going to draw squares instead. So your job is to listen to my story, and then your teacher is going to pause the video and decide what your 2 parts are. In my picture, I have 3 pretend geese and 2 pretend hens. I have 5 pretend birds in all. Look at my picture to see how this is like what we did with our bears at the party and decide what number should go in this part. How many squares should we draw in this part to represent the geese? How many squares should we draw in this part to represent the hens? So we learned by looking at the picture and hearing the story. We had 3 geese. So I'm going to draw squares and I'm going to draw 3 of them. We're drawing in this circle because it's a part. We know this is a part as it's only connected to the whole. Your parts are connected to the whole. Your parts are never connected to each other. How many hens did we have? We had 1, 2. We had 2 hens, so we're going to draw 2 circles. Now that we have our 2 parts, 3 and 2, if they were walking on this path, how many would we have in our whole? All together. We want to move these all together. We would have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're putting our parts together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that we have our parts and our whole, we are going to finish our number sentence. Blank and blank make blank. We have 3 to represent the geese, and we have 2 to represent the hens. We have 5 all together. 3 and 2 make 5. Now let's look at our cats. We have some sleeping cats and we have some cats that are awake. Your teacher's going to pause the video and I want you to count how many cats are awake and how many cats are asleep. Okay. Before we can use our number bond, we need to count our objects. So we're going to first count our awake cats. 1, 2. And we're going to write 2. And then we have our sleeping cats. 1, 2, 3. We have 3 sleeping cats. So we now have our numbers 3 and 2. Now that we have our numbers of 2 cats awake and 3 cats asleep, we are going to move these numbers into our number bond. This number bond has already given us our whole, which is 5. We have 5 all together. What do we put in these 2 circles? If this is our whole, what are these 2 circles to make the number 5? Your teacher's going to pause the video. We've learned that these are parts. These are parts. These numbers are part of 5. These are the numbers that will make the number 5. We know that these are the part circles as they are connected to the whole. Our parts are 2 and 3. If I draw circles to represent my cats, I can go back and count my circles and they should match up to 5. As we know, if we look at our whole, we have 5 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means 2 and 3 make 5. Now that I've drawn my cats and I have my parts, let's put our numbers into our number sentence. What's our first part going to be? What's our first part going to be? Right, we can go back to our parts and count. 1, 2. 2 and, let's go back and count. 1, 2, 3. 2 and 3 make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make 5. These are our parts. This is our whole. Our 2 parts make up our whole. We've been able to break the number 5 into 2 parts. We know 2 and 3 make 5. Today in Seesaw, you are going to continue this work on finding other ways to make numbers. You will also see your number bond shown a different way. Make sure you look at where the lines are connected. Parts connect with the whole. Your parts will not connect with each other. Until next time, bye Kipsters.